In Malaysia, legislation has come into effect that gives the embattled Prime Minister Najib Razak sweeping security powers. The move has been criticised by human rights groups who say Najib can use the powers to silence his critics. The Act allows the Prime Minister to designate security areas. That means he can send forces to search people, vehicles and residents. They'll be valid for 6 months at a time, and Najib can renew the designation. Searches in these so-called security areas can be conducted without warrants. Law associations in Malaysia are concerned that the Act gives enormous executive and emergency powers to Najib Razak. Well, Tricia Yeoh is the Chief Operating Officer at the Institute for Democracy and Economic Affairs and joins us live now from Kuala Lumpur. Welcome to the programme. The law was introduced in response to national security threats. What exactly are these threats that have warranted this?
Well, thank you for having me on board. The Prime Minister issued a statement saying that the threats have to do with terrorism, Daesh. It cited a recent attack that the police said was caused by Daesh or the Islamic State that happened in the city recently. So these are the things that they are using to call these NSC, the National Security Council Act, powers into being. But what people forget is that Malaysia already has several legislation that deals with terrorism. We have a Prevention of Terrorism Act, we call the POTA. We also have a second act called the Security Offences Special Measures Act, or the SOSMA, and these two adequately deal with the security problems in Malaysia. So the concern is that this NSC Act, in fact, is being brought upon for other users, and the fear is that it will be used for political means to silence dissent and any kind of disagreement with the government.
Now, the Prime Minister has had his credibility knocked, hasn't he, with allegations of siphoning public money. You mentioned there that this is being brought in under a sort of different guise. Are these new laws likely to lose him more support?
I think it's part of an entire package of legislation and threats to the established institutions, which have caused this sense of dissatisfaction and disillusionment with the government, with the Prime Minister. There's a sense over here that he is just gathering all his powers, and there's not much in terms of systemic change that can be done because the powers are really being gathered and it's within his established control. So to answer the question as to whether the NSC Act itself is going to add to the dissatisfaction, I would say the answer is yes, but it has to be seen in the wider context of how he's actually slowly over the last few months consolidated his powers, and the NSC Act is just one additional thing, and it is a serious threat, but it is just part of the entire context.
What sort of effect is this going to have on foreign investment, do you think?
That's a difficult question, but I think, as I said earlier, if the NSC Act is contributing to the perception that the government is consolidating its powers, are going to misuse its powers for wrongful purposes, it just adds to the slate of things that the government has done, which includes the stifling of institutions. Recently, the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission has also been, the top 3 people have also been taken off, and the people who are brought in are people who are said to be close to the administration. The concern of investors would be more that the government does not act in an independent manner, that decisions are made because of political reasons. Again, it's all about consolidating power, and if the rule of law, if the respect for human rights, for basic democracy are not adhered to, I think it just means that it's contributing to an atmosphere of increasing repression, and I think that is what we're concerned with. Whether the economy itself seems to be still relatively stable, the macroeconomic indicators still look relatively good, but I think if the investors are concerned at all about the kind of social environment that things are actually going to have an effect as a result of these acts, then I think that would be a cause for concern.
OK, Tricia Yeoh, live from Kuala Lumpur, thank you.